Winning starts with your weakest link. So how you manage your subs matters more than how you manage your stars. And yeah, this puzzle is a big one. Definitely, putting your players in the right positions is always the big puzzle, but also the bigger puzzle and pieces of this is how you manage your weakest players. And let's jump right into this. I'm Coach Parker with CoachParker.org and BeastOffense.com. If you get a chance, subscribe and like and all that good stuff. But let's talk about your weakest players and how you deal with them. And the first part of this is you really need to check your league's minimum player rules and how that all works. I know our league has minimum plays per half. I was in a system prior to this league, which was all game. It could be anywhere in the game. Some leagues, you must start players on offense or defense. I know in our league, special teams in the past have not counted and penalties have not counted, and now they do. So how that all works out. And then it's a big deal of like, who's tracking your minimum players and players' play time in the game and how that works, signatures, and is it the opponent that's tracking your guys or it's your guys? And then also, what's the punishment for non-compliance just for an error? I mean, we've made errors before and had some issues there. So just kind of need to check out all those things. And really, what are your beliefs on this particular subject? On should you start your minimum play weakest players or not, or how do you feel about them playing during the game? It's a touchy subject for everybody, and I know I'm kind of more old school than some, especially since I came out of coaching select travel stuff. So I'm a little bit more firm on this, but I know others are a little bit more open. So let's talk about some of the strategies here. Weak player sub strategies. So some general overall strategies that I've used and other used in the past. And if you don't see anything here on this sheet that you're using that works out well, please leave those in the comments below. Would love to hear your strategies also. So some of my strategies is we try to start our weaker players against weaker opponents for more overall play time during the season. So if you know you have a weak opponent and can beat that team, then yeah, get as much play time for your weaker players as possible and reward them in those particular games. Start them, let them play a lot longer than the minimum plays. Do whatever you can for those. And I tell you, players and the parents love that strategy. So definitely work on that. A lot of guys, and I've done this in the past, is I will substitute my weaker players in the last half of the second quarter and first half of the third quarter, so I can make sure I win the first and fourth quarters. You definitely want to win out the game if you're behind. So that last part of the third and then all the fourth quarter really works out. And I like to get a touchdown scored in that first quarter because sometimes that will set a youth team back. And so there's that. So some guys, especially if you don't have first half and second half rules around playtime, will just get it out of the way in the first quarter or second quarter and get it all done. So that's another way to do that. Another kind of way is start weaker players or sub weaker players during the game at kind of non-critical positions on plays, formations, or situations. And that's kind of a way to do it. That's getting a little bit more intricate, and you probably need somebody that is going to help you sub. So try to be fair with the players. That's one thing, and know your competition so you can kind of get players more play time in game. I mean, we all know that football players are actually made at practice, and that's where the real reps and training and teaching get. And it's not so much game reps as it is in practice. But parents in the league and everybody really want those game time reps. So try to get your players in. Now, within those strategies, it becomes like how many players do you have on your team? And our league likes to keep our rosters under 20 so everybody gets a lot of play time, and that definitely works out. So some of these strategy above, those work well for teams rostered under 20 players. You can usually get everybody in. I think our teams are usually like 16 players, so that everybody really gets a lot of play time. Over 20 players, this definitely becomes a little bit trickier to sub in players, and you probably have to have squads. We used to have a gold squad, which is all starters, all studs, every position. Then we had a black squad, which was mixed in to some non-critical positions. And then we had white squad, which is, everybody's really getting to play a lot against kind of those weaker opponents, and we were doing that. So that's how that worked. Over 36 players really becomes a chore. I've never had over 30 players, but I know people that do. And you definitely, if you can, because a lot of people besides myself recommend this, is try to make an A and B team, especially if you get to 38 or 40. But you'll definitely need to have an offense and defense starters for 36 players, and then sub within that. And then a lot of folks, not just in this weak player strategy, they'll stack their defense, because defense wins games. If an opponent doesn't score, there's a 99.9% chance you actually will win that game. So a lot of folks will stack their defense more than their offense when they're having to put a lot of weaker players into the mix there. So there's that. So let's talk about where to put some of these weaker players. And this is kind of more part of the puzzle there. And really, player position puzzle is kind of key to the whole youth football thing. A lot of coaches forget that. But if you can figure out your player puzzle, you're way ahead of the game. And that's why planning and organization is really kind of ahead of the X and O's. And so let's talk about weak player position strategies. On offense, I will usually play a weak side offensive guard that he just may be slow and he can step down, and I've got a monster center and I can help with that. You might play them at weak side tight end because you're running away from them and they're always flipping. The same thing with the split end or a wide receiver, whatever you want to call those guys. They just split out and run routes. You may throw to them now and then, but I know our league doesn't like us to put those guys there and just let them do nothing. So check with your league what they prefer at that, but that's a place. The other thing I've done in the past, and I've done this twice over 30 plus tackle seasons, is I've had a weaker player that could shotgun snap, and I had two studs at offensive guards that protected him. And so they weren't the best blocker, but they could certainly snap the football well. And so we dealt with it that way. On wedges, we would substitute a bigger guy in and dealt with it that way. But that's some places on offense you can sneak people in. And sometimes, it's kind of fun if you're running a 3-back kind of backfield, you can sneak one in at a back that's running away from the play or something to give them a little extra reward there. So there's some things there on offense. On defense, we like to play the weak side boundary corner, kind of the weaker of the corners there. You can kind of hide a guy there, or sometimes positionally, situationally, if the boundary is to our sideline, we'll pull the starter out and throw in a sub real quick and get plays that way. Definitely if you're running like the 6'2 wide tackle, that's my base defense out of the 6'2 multi-8 pirate defense that I run. And a lot of 6'2 guys will put one or two A-gappers that are subs to bear crawl into the A-gaps. A lot of leagues frown on that, but that's a definite place to do that. Some groups, and I've done this in the past, is I've put a free safety guy back there, kind of used him as this next point as a monster or rover, and had him come down and blitz or go to the wide side of the field and eat up a blocker out there. So that's a strategy that you can do that. Now that's over and above they're starting or you've got squatted up. These are what these strategies are. And then on special teams, if your plays count on special teams, you can sprinkle in one or two in special teams. Be careful I always like to know where my opponent kicks and where they kind of like to run and kind of, know that. So if you're going to sprinkle those in, don't put those where they kick or where they like to run to, because that may get you. So those are some of the things that I've come across over my years and some forums and what I've done. And I'm sure there's other things that you guys are doing. Please leave those below in the comments. Would love to hear your thoughts and strategies on this. This is Coach Parker with CoachParker.org. You can check out all my playbooks over at CoachParker.org. Please like and subscribe if you like this video, comment, all that good stuff. That really helps me in the algorithm. Again, we talked about weak players, substitution, gameplay, and strategy with CoachParker.org. I'm Coach Parker. Remember to play for fun, and winning is funner. See you guys next time. Thanks a lot. Ciao. Have a great season.